Alright, welcome back. Time to move on. Chapter 7, talking about perfect competitions. Okay, we've finally gotten ourselves to analyzing a real market situation. Well, okay, maybe not a real market situation, but at least we're getting close to getting to a real market situation. So what we're going to do first is talk about perfect competitions, or markets where it's perfectly competitive. Right? There are three characteristics that define markets that are perfectly competitive. One is that there are a large number of sellers. There's lots of different people producing the good that's out there in the market. Two, that there's no difference between the products that these people make. So if I'm creating something or you're creating it, we really don't have a difference between the two things that we're creating. We may try, but we really don't. And the third thing is that it's easy to get in and out of the market. These three things define what economists call a perfectly competitive market. Now, are there any perfectly competitive markets out there? Can you think of any markets that have these three characteristics? Well, there's some that are close, but there's really not any one that's actually truly perfectly competitive. But there are some that are close. The two that the book and even I agree with, the two close ones would be stuff like the corn market or the wheat market. Markets where there's lots and lots of growers of corn or wheat. Is there a difference between the corn, the feed corn? Think of feed corn here, not corn on the cob. Feed corn, is there a difference between my feed corn and Brazilian feed corn versus, Chinese feed corn versus African grown feed corn? Not a whole lot, right? For the most part, it's all relatively the same. Easy to enter and exit the market. Again, that one's a little rough for these commodities, but it's pretty close to true, right? I mean, think about it from a farmer's perspective. One year they can grow corn. Are they stuck growing corn forever? No. Next year they can change to soybeans. Right? So it's relatively easy to get in and out of these particular markets. Now, again, like I said, we're going to use this as a basis for analysis later on, and it'll point out some things that we're going to utilize later that make a better analysis of more standard types of markets. So, what we discover when we have this kind of a situation is that individual sellers are price takers. You must take the price that the market sets. Right? Think about it, right? If you listen to the morning farm report, and okay, I admit that I've actually listened to it before, one of the things that they often are telling you about is what are the price of corn, or the price of beans, or the price of wheat, or the price of pigs or cattle. These types of commodities are things where the price is set by the market, and then you, as a seller, you're stuck taking that particular price. Now, from an economic standpoint, here's how it works, right? So here's the overall, say, corn market, for the entire corn market for the entire world. There's going to be a certain amount of supply and a certain amount of demand that are going to generate an equilibrium price. And the amount of corn that we're talking about here, folks, is billions of bushels of corn. So then it comes down to your farm. You, as a supplier of corn, could supply a certain amount of corn. How much corn can you grow? Can you grow billions of bushels? No, nowhere near. You're probably producing, and this is even if you have a large farm, thousands of bushels of corn at the most. But the problem is, what price do you get to set? What's the demand for your particular corn? Well, do you go and try and sell your corn to the guy next door or to the restaurant next door? Do you sell feed corn to them? No. Who do you sell it to? You sell it to a guy who does silage, right? Who's got a big, huge silage bin that he puts all the corn in and then ships it around to different farms that need it for cattle, right? And what ends up happening is that price you get for the corn that you've produced, it's fixed by the market. It's fixed by that equilibrium price created by the entire market. So what ends up happening, folks, here's the equilibrium price. This actually represents your demand curve. So the demand curve in a perfect competition is a demand curve that's almost flat, or really is totally flat. All right? This is a perfectly elastic demand curve. I test you to determine whether or not you believe that perfectly elastic is defined by this. Again, if you don't believe me, look it up in the book or calculate it using prices and differences. All right? So the question then is, we've gone ahead and figured out what supply and demand look like for my firm. How do I make a profit out of it, right? That's what we really want to know. Well, to figure that one out, you're going to have to watch the next video.